Okay, so next, the requirement is kind of interesting, and this is in fact the place where we could actually use the composition. So the requirement says this: only salaried employees and retirees can make a contribution to a pension. In other words, hourly employees do not participate in the pension. What that means is that we cannot actually have this logic in the employee class because the hourly employee does not participate. They do not participate in the pension plan. Okay. Now the logic itself is the same, whether that is applied to salaried employees or retirees. Okay. So same logic is used for both salaried employees and retirees. The logic is something like this: they can contribute only up to $200 per month. If higher amount is given, it will be set to $200. Okay. All right. So we're gonna actually talk about this one in a bit more detail later on. Make sure there is no duplicate code between salaried employee and retiree classes. Okay. All right. So we're gonna actually tackle the salaried the employee test. Okay. So the salaried employee test here. Okay, so we are going to have a test method. So should allow salaried employee to make the contribution to pension. Okay. Okay, so again, we need a salaried employee, so we are going to have before, and let's move salaried employee creation logic here, and then Alt Shift T. We are going to convert local variable to local field. Okay, let's make sure everything still works. Okay, good. Now we are going to make a contribution. So here we are going to have salaried employee, and we are going to make contribution to pension, and we are going to contribution of $100. Okay, and then we are going to assert that, and this one should be returning $100. Okay, and we don't have this method, so we are going to actually implement this method. Make contribution to pension. So we're going to create, so let's create this method in the salaried employee. Okay, so here we are going to just double, and this is the amount, and let's just actually make sure that this is working. So we'll just have $100. Let's save the change, see whether, okay, so it, oh, so I didn't actually have the so I should have close to. Okay, save the change. Okay, so that is successful. So here we are going to remove this line, and the logic we have is that the amount has to be the $200 maximum. Okay, so what we are going to do is, if amount is greater than $200, yeah, so we might as well just have instead of use the this if statement, we are going to say return and question mark. If it's greater than $200, then we want to actually return $200. Otherwise, it's going to be amount like this, and remove this guy. And let's see whether this one works, and it still works. And we want to actually make sure the the $200 amount is also works. So we are going to copy this testing logic, the with $300. above the limit. How about that? Above contribution limit. Okay, and here we're gonna actually pass $300, and it should be $200, right? Save the change, and the logic was successful. Okay, so we did implemented the this contribution to pension for salaried employee. Now we need to do the same thing for retiree test. Okay, so we're gonna actually I'm gonna just copy this logic here, retiree test, and here, and so it should be we are gonna actually have copy retiree, and this one should be retiree, and then we also need to create before, and let's have this retiree creation logic here, and Alt Shift T, extract into a field. Okay. Now the retiree doesn't have this method, so we need to implement this method as well. So retiree has this method, so it's going to be double, and it's going to be amount, and this the logic is the same as the in fact salaried employee. If you take a look at salaried employee, this is the same logic that we need. Okay, make a contribution to. Okay, so I think infinite test is kind of slow. Okay, good. So now, all right, so everything is cool. So we have implemented the logic of making a contribution to the pension. Now we have a problem. What problem do we have? Anybody? So we have a retiree class here. So we have a retiree class, and we have a salaried employee class. So what problem do we have here? Exactly, code duplication. You know, this code and this code are duplicated. So how can you solve this guy? Anybody? I mean, this is a very simple logic, you know, so it might not be a big deal, but suppose this logic is, you know, thousands of lines of code, and you certainly do not want to have thousands of lines of code duplicated in these two classes. Any suggestion? Yeah, good. Yeah, so Vikram is actually, so I'm forwarding. Yeah, so we can actually create another class that contains this logic, and then our salaried employee and retiree class will be in fact injected with that class. Okay, so what we can do is we can actually create a new class called the pension manager, and pension manager will have this logic. Okay, so that is basically what we can do. So let's create here, I have a directory called the pension here, so I'm gonna create new class pension manager, and pension manager basically have this method to be implemented like this. Okay, all right. Now if we can have this pension manager to be injected into retiree class and the salaried employee class, then we are you know, handling the duplication of the code. I mean, we are basically removing the duplication. Okay, so we now have a pension manager, so we could have here, you know, we could actually inject it, private pension manager here. Okay, so this is the composition. Okay, so pension manager is in fact being injected into retiree class and salaried class. Okay, so here what we can do is, instead of actually computing itself, we can actually now use pension manager dot make contribution of amount. And let's save the change, and okay, so it failed. So let's see why it failed. So this is the test. Okay, so let's see what it, okay, so here this one, we have actually null pointer exception. That makes sense because in our test code here, right? Okay, we have not actually set the pension manager into the retiree class, right? So if you take a look at the retiree, we have not actually inject this pension manager object. Okay, so we probably want to have a setter method. Well, we can actually inject this one as the through the constructor. Let's actually have the setter method. Okay, so I'm going to create the setter method. Okay, so here, generate getters and setters. I need just the setter method. Okay, so we have a way of injecting the pension manager. Okay, now we should have actually valid pension manager object. Without setter method, basically this happened to be null. That's why we have this testing code failing. Okay, so we have this retiree here, and let's actually have a retiree test. So whenever we call so here when we create the retiree, we are going to inject retiree set, and we're going to create a new pension manager object. Okay, all right, so that should work fine. All right, so now things are working fine, and we can do the same thing for the salaried employee. So if you take a look at the salaried employee test, and if we actually take a look at the salaried employee here, again we are going to inject private the pension manager and pension manager, and here again we're going to have a setter method. Setter method. So we're going to just have a setter method, and then we are going to use this pension manager. So instead of this guy, duplication of code, we are delegating the that computation logic to pension manager. Okay, and then of course salary test should be the change, so that is now injected with pension manager. Salaried employee set pension manager, and you're going to create the new pension manager like this, and let's save the change. Everything is working fine. Okay, so we basically handled the duplication of the code by extracting the logic into a separate class, in this case the session manager. I'm not session manager, but the pension manager, and then pension manager gets injected into the salaried employee and retiree. So this is an example of the composition in which the dependency object gets injected into the target class. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna let you guys do this exercise.